The length of your fingers are your talents. Tells you what you're good for. Your palm shape is also your talents. In the upper right-hand corner, where it says types of fingertips, that's your personality. That's looking at the fingertips without looking at the nails. And I only do the right hand, so I just count 5 fingers on that. Let's look at the bottom here in the right-hand side. This is your palm shape, your talents. You have a really nice round hand. People with round hands see color and proportion, things that look aesthetic. And they're artistic, either musically or painting, or in your case probably costuming. And you have a really nice artistic hand. So you're probably in a job that's using that right now. Look in the upper right hand corner. This is your personality, your fingertips. You have 4 round fingertips, but you have got 1 pointy fingertip, kind of that index fingers, a little bit pointy. You like fine things, kind of sensitive, diplomatic, impractical, but you might be a collector. Alright, let's go back to the bottom of the page here and do the length of your fingertips. When you have a short thumb, you work really well with numbers. Long thumb people do very well in life because they have good manual dexterity. And you have quite a long thumb. That doesn't mean that you'll struggle with numbers. But I'll tell you who I see the short thumbs on. I see them a lot on the Asian children. Well, on the Asian people, they have the short thumbs. And they generally are in jobs that, accounting jobs, stuff like that use numbers. Looking at your index finger, it's slightly long also. Now this is the boss finger, the manager finger. Leadership, supervisor, sales, political, teaching finger. It's slightly long. It probably isn't your favorite thing to do, but you do well at it. Management. And looking at your business finger, it's not terribly long. It needs to be about the length of your palm. It's about average, kind of fair. I hope you do well in business. If you'll find someone with a real long middle finger, that's generally a good indication of someone with good business sense. But the one that's really good is your ring finger. Now the ring finger and the little finger are your brain fingers. Your ring finger is your right brain, your creative part, and then the little finger is your left brain, which is your scholarly. That means your words and letters part of your hand. So your ring finger is above average, very creative, imaginative, inventive. I forgot to look and see. If you'll hang on just a second, I forgot to look and see if you got creative achievements going up to that finger, which I believe you do. Yes, you do. It kind of splits a little bit. It's a little bit later in your life, too. The lines that go up to that ring finger, you got 2 or 3 creative achievements in there. I forgot to mark that on your chart. I'll try to remember to do that. Now let's look at your little finger. Again, you're probably in a good job that reflects your personality, or not your personality, but your talent, since that finger's above average, a little bit long. Also, I don't see this a lot in the women, but you've got a fairly above average long little finger. Now that's your scholarly finger. That means you work well with words and letters. You're not afraid to write a report or something like that, or you do well if you have to do a lot of paperwork. Okay, let's skip down below that little finger. Here's what I'm sure you're very interested in. These are your marriage lines. And I didn't get any real distinct, clean marriage lines. What I got, you read that little section in between the end of the heart line and the ring around the little finger. And you start at the bottom down towards the heart line. That would be the early part of your life, and the later part of your life is as you get up towards that ring around your little finger. You only read the lines that go horizontal across there. I can see your little tiny short marriage that you had. But I get to that second marriage and holy cow, is it a mess. It's all, you don't want to see islands in any of your lines. It breaks the energy of the line. You've got islands all through that second marriage line. It's not a very dark line. So I don't think there was a lot of love in that second marriage line. And it's all messed up. It's got several markings in it. So that probably, and I'm sure, as you expressed in your information sheet, that you're trying to get out of that. But I do see one good marriage line. It's up in your later part of your life. It's a fairly clean line. It's a real dark line that starts off the side of the hand there. Now it comes over. No, gosh, that is a... There's not a timeline on these marriage lines, so they're a little hard to understand on the time-wise. Well, that looks like it's about getting close to about 20 years, maybe. But it tips down at the end, which means you'll lose your spouse. If it tips up on the end, you'll die first, but yours tips down on the end. So you do have a good marriage line coming up. After you get out of, there's a little gap there between the when you get out of that second marriage line. And boy, that second marriage line goes on forever. He must be the father to several of your children. The children lines go vertical across the marriage line, and your 4 children are very distinct in there. And every single one of them are really good lines. Usually when you see the lines in the children, if they have... You take on the energy of your children when you're with them. And if they've had problems in the spine or illnesses or something like that, you'll usually get breaks in that line. But they've all got pretty good lines. And in fact, the first 3 little grandkids you got... looks to me like you will take on a lot of their energy too. You'll probably spoil them. Alright, let's... the float lines. When you have the tassels on the end of the heart line, you interact well with people. You got really nice tassels on the end of that heart line. It doesn't necessarily mean that you flirt so much that you interact well with people. Your heart line is good. Oh, that you want to see a nice clean heart line without islands or without extra little lines going across it or any of the little stress marks. You've got a good clean heart line. When you have a nice curve in that heart line, you're loving, caring, and you come from a childhood that's a fairly loving childhood, and you've got a nice curve in that heart line. And I can see that line go all up, clear up in between your fingers, which means that you're very close to your family, your parents, or you mentioned your mom. I'm sorry, I can't read anything about your mom's health. It just doesn't show in your hand. I'd have to do your mom's hand. But I can see that you were very close with your the family that raised you, which I'm sure is your mother. You didn't say anything about your father. But when that line goes up between the fingers, you're a little bit spoiled. So that line is curved, loving and caring. You're capable of having a nice, loving relationship. And the heart line is, physically, it's very healthy. You look over here, let's move over here where it says Sixth Sense. You look in that area just below the index finger, and you look for a nice little pad in there. When you got a nice little pad, that's your intuition. And that little section in between the heart line and the head line, that's called the Mars area, when you get the X's in there, which you got several little X's in there, it means you're a little bit psychic. Your intuition is very high, and I can see, from your hand being pressed on that screen, I can see that that's a fairly nice little pad below the index finger. Very good intuition. You need to listen to your promptings, and it looks to me like you've got an excellent mound in there. When you find people that have, if you're going to find your new husband, don't get one that's got a little indented section in there. That's not good intuition. Get one with that nice little fat mound in there. Now moving down that hand, right where the lifeline starts, in between your index finger and your thumb, your two lines don't come together, and it's on both your hands. Your left hand is your past, your inherited characteristics. Your right hand is your present and your future. And where that headline starts and the lifeline starts, if you look in other people's hands, those generally come together right there, but you've got the gap. I don't know if you're familiar with Oprah Winfrey. She's got a popular TV show here in the States, but she's got that on both her hands, just like you do, and it's quite a wide gap. So I put in this extra sheet, the independent and the ambition markings. When those lines don't come together, it generally means that you're quite independent and strong-willed. I'll bet you gave your mother a little bit of a time when you were growing up, trying to get your own way. And this might be part of your problem with husbands. It's a mark of self-confidence. Little adventuresome, little impulsive, but extremely independent. You like things your own way. Very often you're kind of daredevils. But the wider that gap is, the more ambitious you are. You've got a nice wide gap. Very ambitious. That's kind of hard on men. They don't deal with that very well. So sometimes you have to, in a relationship with a man, you've got to back off and let them have their way once in a while. Even though you want things your own way. But plenty of drive, ambition, but your head kind of rules your heart. So you have to be careful you not think things out too much. And go with your emotions a little bit. If you find a man with that marking in their hand, you're actually a pretty good match. You both do your own thing. You don't have to depend on each other too much. Also, over in that left-hand side, in that red square, it says your fingers. When you hold your hand up, your fingers separate widely. You hold your hand up with gaps in between your fingers. That's another indication of independence. When those fingers close up together, usually it's a little need for security. But yours don't close up together. Yours are really independent. Did I skip that money line? Go back over that money line. That's right in between your little finger and your ring finger. That starts just a little bit below the headline. And it goes up to that kind of the gap in between the ring finger and the little finger. Early in your life, you got a couple little breaks in that money line. Like you might have had a little struggle at one time, but then kind of in the middle of your life, that doesn't have a very good timeline on that money line. Kind of in the middle of your life, you've got a double line. Almost like you got two incomes from two different sources. And then that line continues up in between the ring finger and the little finger, kind of ends on that little finger. And that's a nice strong line. So your money line is actually good. I think you're already past that place where you've had the gaps in that money line. So what you've got coming up is like a double income, and then a nice strong line continuing up in through your later years. Let's look at the headline here. That headline is an indication of how smart you are by how straight it goes across your hand. Yours goes clear, starting between where it says birth, where your gap is, and going across the hand to the outside of the hand. Very smart, but it tips down on the end. Usually when I see it tipping down on the end like that, it's a little depression line, so I can see a slight faint line that goes right across the hand, but you've got that little dip at the end that dips down. It heads over towards that area that's the mound of Luna, and you don't want to see it go over there. That's your high imagination area, because it indicates a little bit of depression. I think you're out of place. I couldn't see these lines very good, because your hand was a little bit dark when I got the prints. But I think you're out of place in your spine. If you read the back of that spine chart, it tells you about your vertebrae. And each one of those vertebrae have two little nerves that come off the side. If they get turned out of place, they can cause a real problem in your spine. And it looks to me that yours might be turned out of place a little bit right on that 1 cervical and 2 cervical. And that'll cause some depression. Those two vertebrae sit up underneath your skull. The way you can check that is if you look on the back of the hand work chart, right where it says eustachian tube, reach in between the ring finger and the middle finger and pinch on the top of the palm. If that's kind of sore in that area, that means you're kind of locked up in that very top part of your spine, and that could be causing your depression. What it does, it restricts the blood flow up into your head. And when you get that unlocked, you'll see a major difference in how you feel. Yeah, also when you're out of place in the top part of that spine, you're out a little bit in the top part, and then where I circled that, in between the shoulder blades. I don't know if you're lifting heavy stuff around or what, but boy, that'll sure pull that out of place in between the shoulder blades where it says first thoracic area. But when you're out of place in the top part of that spine, it's going to throw your lower spine out the opposite way to compensate. And it's possible, I can see a little marking that means you're kind of out in that lower spine a little bit. Probably compensating for the fact that you're out at the very top part of the spine. Oh, by the way, you've got a lot of lines on the side of your hand. Those are travel lines. You got those all through your life. You got a lot of good travel lines in there. But then I've got a little purple line in there that goes from the outside of that hand right by the mound of Luna, and it goes from the outside of the hand over towards the fate line. That's kind of an addiction line. You have a propensity to be a little bit addictive, so be careful what you're using, because you could get addicted to drugs or alcohol or sugar or caffeine, anything like that. Let's look along that lifeline. If you've got lines across that lifeline, you see this in your left hand. Your guardian angel lines will show right there. And this is the age you are when someone dies and they become your guardian angel. In your left hand, you'll have parallel lines that go in and touch on those death lines. And you've got a really, really good one at age 3. Anything I've circled is outstanding. A really good one at age 3. You got a fainter one at age 12. But you've got a really good one at somewhere between 14 and 15. And then a little bit lighter line at 18. But your best guardian angels are the ones at age 3 and the ones about in between 14 and 15. Then you've got a visit from a guardian angel. That shows in your right hand. Same place at about age 14 or 15. So it may have been someone that died, maybe a relative, a really good friend, someone you knew, that might have come back and visited you after they passed. Look at the fate line, and that's at the bottom of the sheet in the blue. When you get an overlap break in that fate line, it means a change in either your lifestyle or your career. And that fate line comes right straight down your hand. If it swings out towards that Mount of Luna, it means you're kind of sociable and you got to have friends and family around you all the time. Yours does not swing out. Yours comes right straight down your hand. You're kind of private. You've got things you want to get done, and you don't like to have a lot of people bothering you all the time. So that fate line breaks. You get an overlap there at about age 36, and then another one at about 39, another change at about age 45. I can't tell if these are lifestyle changes or if these are career changes. It doesn't say. All it does is break. And so then you've got another change at about age 45 and another one at age 55. Then you've got a really big change at age 60, as that's getting up towards that middle finger. Now that fate line will run up into that middle finger. If you're gonna live past 80, the ring around that middle finger is about age 80, and I can get you to about age 85. And that line stays fairly stable from age 60 all the way up to age 85. And it doesn't change hardly at all. Oh, here's your, look in the upper left-hand side of the work chart. I've got a little note that says anything that's circled in red is very important. And your achievement lines will show on your lifeline with little lines that come straight up off the lifeline. They're a little bit hard to read. Sometimes you have to get a light, a flashlight or something, and shine it on your hand there. But you got some good ones at age 20's a really good one. 39, 42, 55, really good one at 56. And you seem to do very well here in your late 50s and 60s, so your one at 56 is really good. And one at 58, 61, and 65. If you're 50 now, you still got some good achievements coming up. I'm very impressed with those achievements. Okay, don't forget to look at your sheet that talks about the gap and realize that how independent and ambitious you are, and take that into account in your career and also in your love life, because it certainly will affect the relationships you'll have with men. You've got a truly artistic hand, and the lines look really good and clean in the hand. I don't see a lot of fussy marks. I think I've explained everything to you here on the work chart. Look at both sides. The back side of that chart is hand reflexology. I'll circle a couple of places that you can get in there and work with your fingers, and it'll help some of the spinal problems that you possibly may have. Good luck.